All right, you guys, so I wanted to take y'all to one of my favorite red fishing spots, and I've got my trolling motor remote right here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna break down this spot right here and explain why I love this spot and why this makes an ideal place for these redfish to come in and feed. And we have caught so many redfish right here in this one spot, and I'm gonna explain to y'all why. And we're also gonna explain here and how we're going to dissect a fishery and how we're gonna fish it through all the tide cycles: incoming tide, high tide, and then outgoing tide. Okay, so let's get a quick pan where we're at right now. So if you turn the camera around, and as you can see right here, we have the mouth. We have a little grass island over here to the left. And then we also have this nice grass line that runs. Let's follow this grass line that runs all the way down here. And then, hey, what's up? And then it runs, so then we have this creek that goes all the way back. All right, so that creek goes back about a mile to a mile and a half, and it's just a really shallow creek. And shallow, I mean 2 to 3 feet. So this is an ideal place for redfish to come in to get protection from the dolphins, and also for them to find a quick and easy meal. So shrimp pile in here, crabs pile in here, and then you also get, like right here, we're in this channel which is right up against this grass line right here. So actually right under the boat, it's about 5 feet deep. So on an incoming and an outgoing tide, this is what we like to call a fish highway. And that's just places that are gonna move a biomass. It's gonna move bait, it's gonna move the predator fish, redfish, trout, flounder, snook, whatever you're fishing for. So on this trough, this deeper channel up along this grass line is gonna hold a lot of the current. So because of that, all these bait fish are gonna get sucked in and out of this current right here in this deeper area, because the current's gonna be, obviously, because the current's gonna be a lot stronger here where there's more water flowing in and out. So this area makes an ideal redfish place because these redfish, A, they have protection from their predator, the dolphins, and B, they have a easy meal, and it's just an ideal place that's gonna hold a biomass. It's gonna hold life. So we've got pretty much everything that we're looking for. We've got this beautiful grass right here, the exposed grass. We have a lot of submerged grass. We have solid depth changes, because right here, let's get a quick shot. So right here, you can see how shallow it is as this current is flowing right over the sandbar. It's about 4 inches deep right there. And then it drops off to about 4 feet deep right here. So again, the current is gonna be much stronger right here where there's more water flowing, where it's deeper, as opposed to where the water's more shallow. So the redfish, they are gonna be positioned in areas that they can ambush that bait, that forage that's moving in and out of this fish highway. So areas that we're gonna look for and target these redfish on an incoming and outgoing tide are pretty much gonna be similar. So even right here, let's get a quick shot of this right here. You guys see this little kind of nook right here that this is actually an ideal place where redfish can pin their bait up against this grass line. Hold on, let me turn my trolling motor on. So even this pocket right there is going to provide an excellent opportunity for these predator fish, the redfish, to ambush their bait that's gonna be moving in and out right here up against this grass line. So as this tide comes in, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start right here at the mouth of this creek. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start by working this flat right here. And that could be 200, 300, 400 yards behind me, because it's a whole shallow flat that we have submerged grass, we have oyster bars, but it's just a nice flat. And that creates, again, an opportunity for these redfish to come up and to feed. It makes them very, very comfortable, because we don't see a lot of dolphins right in here. We don't see a lot of their predators. We just see a lot of their food, a lot of their bait. So again, what we're gonna do on that incoming tide is we're gonna start by working that whole flat. All we're gonna do is we're just gonna be making really long casts and just, you know, what we like to call using a lot of search baits. So that's gonna be our mirror lures, popping corks, making a long cast on jig heads, maybe like a paddle tail that we're doing a slow retrieve. So those are a lot of search baits that we're gonna be covering a whole lot of ground fishing that whole flat. Another thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a lot of keyed in casts right on that grass island right there. And I'm gonna show you guys some footage that I have caught redfish up against on that grass island almost like clockwork each time I come out at a specific tide when that area holds water. So that's what we're gonna do on an incoming tide. We're gonna start at the mouth of this creek, this whole area, and we're gonna work all sides of it. We're gonna make search casts on the flat right there. We're gonna make keyed in casts on specific ambush points up against that grass island. Another thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna come and we're gonna work the mouth of this creek right here as that tide is starting to come in, and that's where these redfish are gonna pile in here. So let's say on an incoming tide that you catch a redfish right here on this grass point that's right at the mouth of this creek. So on an outgoing tide at that same water level, you're gonna have a high percentage of catching redfish there as well on an outgoing tide. So it's like a pendulum. So an area that you catch a redfish on an incoming tide is also that same area that you're gonna wanna target on that outgoing tide as well. So that kind of makes it easy. Okay, so on that incoming tide, we're gonna continue making keyed in casts up against this grass line where we have that deeper water, and these redfish, they're gonna be pinning their bait right up against this grass line. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, as you can see right here behind me, we have this little pocket, these two pockets right here. Those are excellent ambush points that I have caught redfish. So we're gonna make a keyed in cast, and right there. So I just casted my bait right up against that grass line. And a lot of times that's where that redfish is gonna pick it up, right on those first few pops of my, whether it's a mirror lure, a popping cork, or a jig head, it's gonna be right up against that grass line. I mean, guys, this is just such an amazing spot because it's what it's doing is it's funneling this biomass into a small area. So if you guys can locate a spot very similar to this in your fisheries, this is an ideal place because, again, it's just funneling the bait into one area. It's almost trapping all the bait. I've stood right here on this bank and watched hundreds, thousands of finger mullet just getting washed out of this creek right here. And even I've seen redfish, trout, striper, all these like flashes in the water. So you guys, as this tide is like coming in, that's what we're gonna do is we're gonna key in on this spot as well, because now we still might have some fish out here on the flat, but again, the major biomass is gonna be moving right here. So this is an area that we really wanna target once that water fills in. So once the water is filled in this flat, then that's what these redfish are gonna be doing. They're gonna be in their happy place, just swimming around, looking for a meal. They're gonna be coming up shallow. You might see some of their backs out of the water. You're gonna see a lot of splashes around. So you're gonna see a lot of things just busting on the surface all over. So you're still gonna catch fish in these deeper areas, but you're also gonna catch fish up in that 1 to 2 foot of water, where we're gonna continue making some search casts as well, all throughout this shallow flat back in here and this creek. So again, you guys, so once this water fills in, what we're gonna be doing is we're just gonna be targeting these pockets and these areas right up against the grass line where the redfish are just gonna be in their happy place. They're gonna be feeding, and that's the time where they are gonna be utilizing that environment based on the tide and the bait that's in here to try and eat as much as they can before the water runs back out with that outgoing tide. So on an outgoing tide, which is what we currently have right now, we're gonna be looking at these same exact areas that we caught these redfish on that incoming tide, because these redfish are still gonna be ambushing their bait on that outgoing tide. And this right here at the mouth of this small creek where these bait fish and these crabs have been where these bait fish and the biomass has been funneled into this one small area is going to be an amazing spot to target these redfish on that outgoing tide. Even this small flat, it's like a, 100 square foot, little area right here. I have caught numerous redfish, again, just like clockwork, because you have, as this tide is rushing out, you have the current that is moving very fast right along this grass line, but then you have more of like a slack current up on that flat. So even in that small, tiny little flat, that'll hold sometimes 10 to 20 redfish on that outgoing tide, and they love that area. So redfish are very much so creatures of habit. If you catch one redfish in one spot, then you definitely want to take note of that. What time of year was it? What tide was it? And what were you using? So those are all things that you want to make either mental notes of, or even sometimes when I was learning red fishing, I would take my cell phone out and I would make, notes on my cell phone of, everything about where I caught that fish. Because if you catch a redfish in a specific spot, then there's a reason why that fish was there. So that right there is an example of how y'all can target a specific area and fish it with the tides, and also what makes an excellent place to target these redfish.